Welcome to the April 12th meeting of the New Bern Board of Aldermen. At this time, the prayer tonight will be given by Alderman Blanks.
Yes, sir, Mayor Outlaw. I'd like to invite up Reverend Dr. Laura Johnson, pastor of Broad Street Christian Church. She is from Bristol, Tennessee, graduate of King University and Campbell University School of Divinity. She's been here in New Bern for close to 4 years, so welcome.
Thank you. Let us pray. God of the universe, on this evening of thoughtful work, we pray to you as overseer of this diverse but united group of servants. Within our city management and citizenship, let no riches make us ever forget you, no poverty make us forget ourselves. Let no hope or fear, no pleasure or pain, no accident without nor weakness within hinder or discompose our duty or turn us away from your will. May your spirit dwell with us all forever, ensuring our souls are just and charitable and honest, resolute and constant in holy purposes, but inflexible to evil. Bless the work and the life of our new Assistant City Manager, Kristen Kohler, and make each one of these elected, hired, and voluntary servants wise, humble, and obedient, peaceable and pious, never envying another's gain, nor deserving to despise his or her own name. Inspire the rulers of our city, county, state, nation, and world with counsels of meekness. Heal the discords that tear communities and nations asunder. Keep our citizens and guests safe from all harm. And as our mayor, aldermen, managers, planners, police chief, fire chief, and other leaders consider the particular business matters before them tonight, enlarge their passion and increase their vision, that on the swift wings of the highest ideals, their thoughts might rise to meet up and to match up with yours. Because you are holy and all-knowing, we have paused to pray. Thank you, Lord, for this opportunity on this day. Amen.
Please join me in the pledge of allegiance to the flag of our country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Blackiston.
Here.
Alderman Taylor.
Here.
Alderman Scheibel.
Here.
Mayor Outlaw.
Here.
Alderman Kinsey.
Here.
Alderman White.
Here.
Alderman Odom.
Here.
Okay, everybody present. At this time, we're going to have requests and petitions of citizens. Thank you. Okay, the first one up would be Gregory Singleton. Gregory, if you'd like to come up and tell us where you live and...
Greetings, Mayor, Aldermen. My name is Greg Singleton. I'm the chairman of the Craven Pamlico Reentry Council. I live right here in the wonderful city of New Bern, North Carolina. The reason why I'm here, I want to introduce properly and on the record the Craven Pamlico Reentry Council. The Reentry Council was brought together in 2011 by the Attorney General Eric Holder. And the mission of this Reentry Council, which is the local Reentry Council, was to reduce recidivism. Recidivism is a fancy word for once a person gets out of prison, the amount of time that they return. And statistically, it has been reported that in North Carolina, the recidivism rate within the first year to 2 years is at a whopping 92%. The mission behind the Reentry Council, it has 3 missions. The first mission is to reduce taxpayer dollars by getting those offenders back to work. Second, to make our community safer. And third, what more assuring thing can happen to an offender that's getting out of prison is to be gainfully employed, able to pay his or her taxes and take care of their families themselves. Now, the high water area that we have in Craven County, Craven and Pamlico County, is limited transitional houses, transportation, attire to properly interview for a job, food, mental and substance abuse. I'm proud to say that the local Reentry Council is aggressively addressing each of those high water areas. And today, again, we just want the support of the city, as it relates to the local Craven-Pamlico Reentry Council. Thank you for this opportunity to stand before you today. It's a very serious matter, and we want to keep our community safe by supporting your local Craven-Pamlico Reentry Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
I'm Cheryl McCarthy with the Seeds Ministry, and we're partnering with the Reentry Council, and National Reentry Awareness Week is the 24th through the 30th, and we're going to have a whole week of events that touch on different areas that Greg just spoke about. So ending with a block party on the 30th downtown on Broad Street. So we'd love to have everybody come. Please contact us. Can you go ahead and put your website number down there on contact?
Yes.
Anybody else?
If you want to find out, well, we've already spoke with Ms. Colleen about putting this information as it relates to National Reentry Week, which is going to spell out an event each and every day. The kickoff will start at Temple Baptist, where everybody will come together. Of course, Mayor and the rest of the aldermen are definitely invited. If you would allow me the opportunity to email that information to you, as well as to Colleen, it would be passed on to you in a much more constructive fashion.
Okay. Well, enjoyed our meeting that we had earlier, this manager, and look forward to working with you on this.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And you had a good turnout today for the job fair.
Yes,
Yeah,
we've been
good.
quite busy with that.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Greg. Our next speaker or petition citizens is Ed Vargas. If you come on up and give us your name and address for the record. Edwin?
Yeah. Edwin Vargas at 230 Atmore Drive in New Bern, North Carolina. The illustration on the overhead is the debt services from stormwater management. Cities of New Bern, you have been lied to. Once again, we thought that the Duke Progress intervention under the previous board mayor was bad to the tune of $400,000. This is no better. When Irene came into New Bern, August 2011, it devastated areas on Atmore, Tuscan, North 2nd Avenue. From September 2011, I and other citizens took our concerns to City Hall to have stormwater management be a reality, not just talk. In 2007, then Mayor Bayless and Alderman Outlaw could have passed a $4 million bond to address this issue to combat drainage. It was put on the shelf to care for Township 7 water issues. Then and now, Mayor Outlaw has voted against the bond in stormwater. During the June 12, 2012 Board of Aldermen meeting, I addressed this before the ordinance for stormwater was even passed. The rub is, do you know that $300,000 have been pulled since 2012-2013 budget of $75,000 each budget year for debt services to the Simmons Street Wetlands Project way before stormwater funds and enterprise was even imagined. This is so wrong under every level. Your fee collected by the City of New Bern Electric Department is supposed to go for drainage, culverts, 4 areas cleaned every 90 days, not to pay for a project paid by general funds, the Simmons Street Wetlands Project. Now just $75,000 is taken from the budget of stormwater, 2012-2013, to now that the $75,000 average is taken off the top to cover the Simmons Street Wetlands Project, which was paid by general funds before stormwater ever happened. And now during this year's retreat, discussions were made on 5 projects if fees were increased for stormwater for citizens and businesses to cover these capital improvement projects. Those type of projects that are capital improvements need to be on a list under Public Works and funded through the general fund or have a bond for them. If in 2007 a bond for $4 million was passed, stormwater management would have been delayed till 2012-2013. Before stormwater funds was established, this was taken care of with a $65,000 budget, 2011-2012 to $75,000 under Public Works. The bottom line is to not have taken funds from the stormwater fund expense 5411 and pay the debt services of the Simmons Street Wetlands Project of $75,000. Let it come from the general fund. Any capital improvement projects, which 5 were indicated, need to be prioritized and funded either by the general fund or a bond, which was discussed in 2007 and was never passed. Citizens need to know where this money for stormwater management is being used wisely or diverted to the Simmons Street Wetlands Project, which to date is $300,000. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, sir. And our next speaker will be David French. Mr. French, if you come up and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. I'm David French. I live at 1719 Spencer Avenue. I'm here on behalf of the Family History Society of Eastern North Carolina, and I'd like to point to this photograph. Ms. Janet J. Latham, that many of us know here in New Bern, she's 89 years young, and she recently was going through her papers and found this photograph of, it was quite popular at one time to very much celebrate President Washington's birthday, and this was actually celebrated just right down the street on Craven Street in the building that is next to Mitchell's Hardware, which was called Hughes Hall. Well, it was sort of, I guess, kismet that she found it this year, because this year is the 225th anniversary of President Washington's trip to North Carolina. He did a whole southern tour through Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and back into North Carolina. And we are having a special event this Sunday, April the 17th at 3 p.m. at the Broad Street Christian Church. And we didn't plan this with the minister, but it really worked out well to be here. And we'd like to invite the public to be there. We're going to have, it's the 6th anniversary of the Family History Society, and it's also the 225th for George Washington being here. And also, we're going to have a gentleman from Memphis, Tennessee, John Anderson Brayton, who's written 4 books on the early, what he calls the first families of North Carolina. And if anyone, they can go to our website, they can download this photo and see all the names. It's like, it's a who's who of turn of the century New Bern. There was a Nunn, a Dunn, and a Winley's, so they could have been a law firm, it sounds like. But there are a lot of people who still have relatives here now. If they go to our website, which is encfamilies.org, they can download the press release. They can see a list of all the families. And we're just asking for the proclamation to acknowledge this historic event. President Washington came into Craven County at Fort Barnwell. The Masons met him out at close to Streets Ferry, St. John's Lodge, and ushered him into the city and his entourage. He spent 2 nights in New Bern in the John Wright Stanley House, which stood at that time where the federal courthouse stands. And he said he had exceedingly good lodgings in New Bern, and he danced, I think someone said, with 40 women, or ladies, I guess they would be ladies back then, and that he left New Bern and went to Trenton and stayed in the Shine Inn that was owned by Colonel Daniel Shine. So we would just like to invite the public, the Board of Aldermen, the city staff, and everyone to come out, the citizens of New Bern, because this is a very important event. We thought that we needed to celebrate it because we may not be around for the 250th, so we will go ahead and celebrate the 225th. So we just like everyone to come out for that.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate that.
And we have, we'll leave flyers up here if anyone in the audience would like one. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Our next speaker is Michelle Lynn. Michelle, if you'd like to come up and give us your name and address.
My name is Michelle Lynn. I live at 1112 National Avenue, and I'm here on behalf of the residents of Riverside. We have the speed limit currently on National Avenue at 35 miles per hour. I know the city has just recently taken over that street, and the traffic is heavy in that area, especially early morning during working 8 o'clock and, of course, at 5 o'clock. The residents, we've gotten together and would like to request that the speed limit be reduced to 25 miles per hour, beginning at the National Cemetery, all the way down past the railroad tracks, right at George and Bern Street. There's a lot of children in the neighborhood. There's bus stops on National Avenue. People are walking their dogs, running and walking, and it's a real safety hazard. So we do ask that the Board of Aldermen please consider reducing that speed to 25 miles per hour. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Next one is Jack Chadowitz. Come on up, sir.
My name is Jack Chadowitz. I live at 1222 National Avenue along with my wife Ronnie. We're here to talk about the same topic as Michelle. We have concerns that the traffic along National Avenue is heavy. The design of National Avenue has a lane going north and then a wide lane going south. And that wide lane is often used for parking as well. Parking's allowed on that lane. The traffic is heavy, particularly around 8 o'clock and 5 o'clock in the evening. There is a lot of speeding. There are no crosswalks, and it's dangerous to cross the road. This road has signs which prevents truck traffic, which is effective. But the state of the road, along with the speeding, makes it very, very noisy. The bumps cause noise. Now, Michelle's done a great job. She contacted the police department, and they did a report on the traffic and the speeding. Michelle recently, just a couple of moments ago, gave me the report, and I sincerely question this report. The testing was done just north of the railway track, and the testing was done in such a way that people were aware of the testing. The testing was done by putting up a device which measures the speed and indicates the speed. The railway tracks on National Avenue are a built-in speed slowing device, because unless you really don't care about your vehicle, you have to slow down to go across those tracks. And this speed measurement device was located just after those railway tracks. So that, and the fact that it looked like it was a speed indication, modifies the behavior of the people at the point where these measurements were taken. So these measurements actually show that there are significant vehicles which are not adhering to the speed limit, but I think that the report would be more accurate and would show even more speeding and dangerous behavior had that measurement be done in, for instance, opposite Avenue B or Avenue C, or in the middle of the road. In addition, coming from George Street, I'm not sure, or it's very, very difficult to see if there is a speed sign. So it may be that people are not aware of the fact that the speed is 35 miles an hour. I believe that on George Avenue, just my guess that it's a built-up area, it's 30 miles an hour. But I don't believe there's actually a sign which changes the speed limit. So along National Avenue, there are signs coming from the north, 35 miles an hour. Once again, the construction of National Avenue with this sort of strange double lanes, which are sometimes used for parking, makes this very, very dangerous. For instance, trying to make a left-hand turn out of Avenue B into National Avenue with cars parked along the right-hand side is very, very difficult, especially if cars are speeding coming from the north. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Okay, this time we're going to go to the consent agenda, and has the board had a chance to look at this, and is there anybody has any questions being these items? Good. Chris. Thank you.
Mayor, if no questions, I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda. Second.
Motion by Alderman Odom, seconded by Alderman Taylor to approve the consent agenda. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call starting with Alderman Blackiston.
Alderman Blackiston.
Yes.
Alderman Taylor.
Yes.
Alderman Scheibel.
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey.
Yes.
Alderman White.
Yes.
Alderman Odom.
Yes.
Motion carries. At this time, a very important item, number 8. Now, Mr. Stevens, would you like to take care of that?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. Tonight is a very special night. We have a new member of our staff present with us. Would like to introduce to you Kristen Kohler. She goes by Chrissy. Kristen comes to us via the state of North Carolina and is our new assistant city manager. Very lengthy process, a lot of candidates. We had approximately 275 to 300 applications for this job. We whittled that down to 6 or 7. We did some Skype interviews initially. We went through a process, and maybe Chrissy might want to comment on that whenever she gets up here in a second. She wishes to say a few words about the complexity of that and the very long day. But we had several city managers join me for the interview process on one panel. We had our department heads. They were sat in on another panel. They were given, the candidates were also given a homework assignment, which they had to look at a situation to where how they would handle it, and how they would notify the board, and a lot of procedural things. So Chrissy was kind of stepped to the plate and succeeded very well in her homework assignment as well as the interview process. So I'd like to introduce to you our new assistant city manager, Kristen Kohler.
Okay. Would you like to go up and make some comments, Chris?
I think we decided to come out this way.
Okay, all right.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the board. Again, my name is Chrissy Kohler. I cannot tell you how excited I am to be part of this community and part of this staff and working with all of you moving forward. Like Mark said, I feel like it was a rigorous interview process, and one of the board members on the department head panel asked me if I was nervous in that setting, and I said, no, not really. When you've landed on an aircraft carrier at night, it kind of puts things in perspective. So I do come I'm a native North Carolinian. I grew up in Charlotte. I attended the North Carolina School of Science and Mathematics in Durham. And then I went off to the Naval Academy, where I became a naval officer and a fighter pilot. I flew F-14s off of aircraft carriers, was active duty for about 10 years, and then served the Navy as a government civilian for a number of years before moving back to North Carolina, wanting to be close to family and be back home. My first tenure was in Raleigh. I was the Deputy State Chief Information Officer working for the state's Department of Information Technology. A lot of good experiences there, a lot of good contacts in Raleigh, understanding state government. But my husband and I decided that we wanted to be closer to the coast, be in a smaller town. We are both veterans and are very excited about being in an area with both veterans and active duty military, and look forward to be involved with that community. And like I said, cannot be more pleased to be in New Bern and having this opportunity to work with Mark and the team and all of you. So. Thank you.
Welcome to New Bern. Okay, this time we're going to go to item number 9, presentation of the New Bern Firemen's Museum. Mr. Stevens.
Thank you, members of the board. Representatives of Friends of Firemen's Museum are with us tonight. They are here to give us an update on the recent Barbecue and Blue Jeans fundraiser that they had. They have every year. It's a very successful event, a very well-attended event. They also are going to provide an update on the relocation of the museum to the old fire station on Broad Street. So tonight we have Nancy Mansfield and Dave Finn, who sit on the Firemen's Museum, Friends of the Firemen's Museum board. So they're going to give us that update tonight.
Good evening. My name is David Finn, 215 Neuchatel Court, New Bern. Thank you for the opportunity to come and brag about Barbecue and Blue Jeans. This year, first of all, Barbecue and Blue Jeans was designed and started off several years before I even arrived here in New Bern. This was my first year to run it, and I am absolutely tickled to death that it was the biggest year we ever had. We had a lot of great sponsors. That was through several of our board of directors who put an extra effort in, got a lot of new sponsors, and increased the old sponsors' ranking. The Sun Journal did a great job with some new ideas in promoting ticket sales. We had, at one point, 840 people in that room. Chief Boyd several times was at my sites, reminding me of what the occupancy was of the convention center. But we kept it right there, right, Chief? That is a very important project to the museum for its existence. Most of that money is used for the operation of the museum. I would also like to thank those of you who were in attendance, those of you who were sponsors, those of you who bought tables of tickets. I personally appreciated that immensely. That's all I have, unless you have some questions about barbecue and blue jeans. If not, the lady who leads our group, Nancy Mansfield, is going to talk about our relocation. She and I are kind of on a bit of a high because it's, and so is the chief back here. Because it's been many, many years of making this happen, and it happened on Monday. Nancy?
My name is Nancy Mansfield. I live at 315 George Street, and I'm president and chair of the board of Friends of the New Bern Firemen's Museum. I want to say it's a pleasure to talk to you, our public partners. I always refer to the Firemen's Museum as a public-private partnership, the city of New Bern and the Friends of the New Bern Firemen's Museum. And so, partners, it's nice to see you. Unless you've been asleep for the last 2 or 3 days, you probably know that the New Bern Firemen's Museum opened yesterday in the newly renovated Central Fire Station on the first floor. Last week, more than 250 visitors on the Spring Homes Tour stopped by to see us, and I can tell you in all honesty that they were uniformly impressed. So were we. This has been a project pursued off and on during the last decade. We were hard hit by the recession, but 2 years ago, we determined to wait no longer, and we began transferring a pretty sad old building into a showplace. The old tin ceiling, which had rusted through, was duplicated and one in aluminum that won't rust. The plaster was repaired. Painters and carpenters did their magic, and the floor was sanded down, stained, and sealed. We are having some issues with the wooden doors that we had made to duplicate the original ones, but we're confident that we're going to solve that. In short, we returned the first floor of the old Central Fire Station into how it pretty much must have been when they cut the ribbon in 1928. Not all of our work has been confined to the inside. On the lot adjoining us, we're creating a park-like area that will feature a bell tower that will have on it the old fire bell that served in the 5 Points area, and an honor walk for which we are selling bricks and pavers to honor and remember people. We'll also be having benches and trees and shrubs, and that's a hint, of course. I'm encouraging you all to think about this and join us in buying one of those, and some of you already have. Thank you. Now, I would like to tell you this wouldn't have happened without the generous support of many, many peoples and businesses. I have to thank in particular Bud Stilley, the head of Tar Heel Builders, who served as our general contractor throughout the whole project and who enlisted others to give outstanding work for very good prices. And Bud's price was the best of all. He did it free. He did it pro bono. Many individuals and several foundations have supported us generously, and I want to thank the Public Works for their assistance in getting the building in good shape. They're still working on the windows upstairs, but we're going to get that done. What's left to do are 2 main things. One, we need restrooms. Several of you have agreed to work with us on this. We have a design that we think will work. Now it's a matter of funding it and getting them in, because every time you have a group, somebody always has to use the restroom, and now we have to trot out of the building to another building. Secondly, we need to renovate the 2nd floor. We have already bought and paid for wonderful exhibits that will go in there. We're particularly excited about a big exhibit on the Fire of 22 and another interactive children's museum. We've already installed a lift that will take visitors up as soon as we're ready to have them come up. Now we must do a lot of cosmetic work and restore that floor to its original condition. We estimate that the remaining costs for this work is about $82,000. We are actively pursuing private sources to raise this money. Let me close with one final thought. There's an internet site that probably many of you know. It's called TripAdvisor. It's very popular with tourists because they can go on there and find out from real people who visited places what they thought of them. Well, the New Bern Firemen's Museum is on TripAdvisor, and I'm happy to tell you that it is second in popularity only to Tryon Palace. We're very proud of the New Bern Firemen's Museum, and we hope you are too. I'll take your questions if you have any.
I got one question. Great presentation, ma'am, and Ms. Mansdale, Mr. I'm sorry, I didn't get your last name.
Ben,
Ben.
like fish.
Got a question, Fire Museum. Have you all ever considered putting the fire chief's names from beginning to present somewhere in the Fire Museum?
Yes, sir.
As well as African American, as well as Caucasian, both
Maybe you could help us, or you could lead us to some people that would give us the African American chiefs, because we've done a substantial amount of research. We have, no researchers, so we have to rely on the good services of citizens. We would like to do that. We do have pictures of all the fire chiefs over the decades, and they will be in one of the chiefs' rooms upstairs. But boy, would we like to include the African American fire chiefs and the African American companies. And I say to you, anybody, Mr. Kinsey knows that, I've talked to him about that, we really need help in researching this. So anything you can find out, please tell us. We would like to have that.
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Okay. Nancy, do we have design plans for the restrooms ready to present to staff?
We have a set of plans that Mr. Stilley designed for us, bless his heart again, pro bono, and costed finally. We've talked to Mr. Stevens, and he had some really interesting points to make about that, so I guess we're in a still talking stage. Is that right, Mark?
Yeah, just a real quick update. I spoke with Bobby Astor, and I think, Dave, you were there that day, I believe, that we had that discussion, and they have, Bud has drafted a plan that has kind of a mix of an interior and an exterior bathroom arrangement. So they would have to add on a little bit. So if you're going to have to add on a little bit, I was looking at, well, what would be the cost in addition to if you were just to add the bathrooms on to the building, therefore freeing up floor space so that they could see what the difference in the cost would be if you kept it outside. Because ultimately, if you put some of it inside, you're probably going to have to put some of the plumbing in underneath the concrete, which means you're going to have to cut up the concrete floors and so forth and so on. So ultimately, looking at the increase in floor space, so I was curious what the difference is in the cost. So Bobby Astor mentioned that he would go back to Bud and just see if there would be just a rough estimate as to what that additional cost may be if we were to build on and add those restrooms in total to the building versus eat up some of the interior floor space. But ultimately, I think you do have a final costed out for the initial design. Is that correct, Ms. Mansfield?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And I should add that this project has been shepherded by Bobby Astor, and it would be impossible for me to say enough good things about his work. It's been outstanding. He works on the inside, and Chief Boyd back there works on that outside project. And what we would do without fire chiefs, I have no idea.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Nancy. At this time, we're going to go to item number 10, presentation by NC Department of Transportation on First Street Design Options. Mr. Stevens.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. As you will recall, at our board retreat on March 12th, 2016, the staff presented to you a proposed street layout along with the First Street improvements that we have been looking at for some time. And we had a fairly lengthy discussion regarding the First Street corridor and the desire of the design to go from a 4-lane undivided highway down to a 3-lane, which would be 1 lane in each direction, with a multi-directional turning lane in the middle, along with bicycle lanes on each side. The board expressed some concerns with that design, and they had requested to possibly hear from John Rouse, who is our Division II engineer here out of Greenville. And so he's here tonight to present some of the findings as well. that we've been in discussions with him about this particular design. Additionally, one thing of concern, obviously this is a project that we had looked to submit through the MPO as one of our major projects. As you recall, the board looked to provide additional funding for this project at one of our past board meetings. And if the board wishes to not pursue this, then at this time we probably need to look at pulling that from our MPO agenda. So I think some of our representatives from the MPO are here tonight that are our internal city staff. But at this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Rouse, let him do his presentation that was at the board's request. So.
Mayor, members of the board, thank you for inviting me tonight. What I wanted to do is give you a Road Diet 101, if I can, just a brief description of what they are, the benefits of those. What is a road diet? A road diet is a conversion of a 4-lane undivided road to a 3-lane undivided road made up of 2 through lanes and a center 2-way left turn lane. Here's an overview schematic. What you can see before, you have basically 2 through lanes each direction, undivided, and you go to 1 through lane each direction with a center turn lane. This is your typical road diet. And as you can see, the after effect, you gain additional width in the roadway cross section that can be used for other amenities. The benefits of going to a road diet, the biggest one is safety. What you do is you reduce conflict points. On a typical 4-lane undivided highway, we have 6 conflict points. These are the potential points which you can have collisions with vehicles. And what you do is you cut those in half by about 50%. You go from 6 to 3 potential conflict points. In your intersections, same thing. When you have to go from a 4-lane undivided section to a 3-lane section, you reduce those conflict points in half from 8 to 4. You also have a reduction in Good Samaritan crashes. If you're not familiar with those, on a 4-lane undivided facility, if you have traffic stacked up and you're trying to turn left through traffic, a lot of times you'll get an opening and you'll have a person on that inside lane waving you through. You'll pull through and the car on the outside lane will T-bone you because you can't see them and they don't expect you to be coming through there. With going from a 4 to a 3-lane section, you eliminate this issue. There's no hidden vehicles in the 3-lane section. Safety benefits, what we have seen with road diets, we typically experience an overall crash reduction anywhere from 20 to 50% depending on the volumes. Reduction of rear end and left turn crashes through the use of a dedicated left turn lane. Fewer lanes for pedestrians to cross and an opportunity to install pedestrian refuge islands if you're making large-scale pedestrian improvements. Reduction in angle crashes caused by side street traffic, crossing 4 lanes to make a through movement, or across an intersection, or trying to turn left into that intersection. This also gives you an opportunity to install or incorporate other uses into the roadway, such as on-street parking or bike lanes. The operational benefits we receive from it is the separation of left turns from the through traffic. On a 4-lane undivided section, that inside through lane is also a left turn lane. And if your volumes are high enough and you've got enough people turning, you essentially have a 2-lane road anyway with 2 left turn lanes instead of 1. The side street traffic crossing. Side street traffic can more comfortably enter the mainline roadway because there are fewer lanes to cross, and this can reduce side street delay and signal timing. We can actually cycle the signals faster on a 3-lane section than we can a 4-lane undivided section. Speed differential reductions. Reduction of speed differential due to a more consistent traffic flow that you get with the 3-lane section. You have less of the accordion style stop and go movements when you have heavy volumes. Considerations you need to take into place. The biggest issue that I hear from people are concerned is the volumes of traffic. They think, well, if you're going to go from a 4-lane to a 3-lane section, you're going to get a lot of congestion. What we have found, the Federal Highway Administration recommends that road diets be considered for roads with ADTs of 20,000 vehicles per day or less. The ones we have done in our division, we've done a few, have been in the 10 to 15,000 vehicle range. Another consideration to make is, can the improvements be incorporated in the existing cross section, which when you go from 4-lane divided to 3, they can. So there's no widening of pavement, no additional right-of-way needed, utility relocations, those type of needs are not there. This is a good example. I'm not sure of the location of this picture. I think it's somewhere out in the western part of the state, but what you see is an old 4-lane undivided section going to a 3-lane divided section on the road diet. This was done via a resurfacing program, and you can see that they incorporated in this road diet the use of bike lanes on the outside lanes. The ones we have been involved with, we've either gained one of two amenities, one bike lanes or the other being on-street parking. This is an existing location in the town of Washington to the north on US 264 between Bauer Street and East 10th Street. This is a road diet that we implemented last year, actually. As you can see here, this is a before picture showing 4 lanes undivided. And then the final product going to a 3-lane section. And you'll notice there are no outside amenities on this section. The problem the city of Washington was having is they had a 4-lane section, but the lanes were so narrow that when a fire truck had to go down the lane, it couldn't stay in one lane. It basically had to take both lanes. You could not run parallel traffic. 18-wheelers, it was bad to just see 2 of them get side by side. And talking to several truck drivers, it was not uncommon for them to rub mirrors on in these lanes. So what we were able to do there is to go from very narrow lanes to back to very wide lanes, probably in the 12 to 14-foot range on the outside lane, which is a good lane width, which is much better. And we have, initially we had some concerns by the town board. There was concern that, that we were going to experience more congestion. We did not. The volumes that we have on that section road, I think, are about in the 15,000 ADT range. And the volumes you currently have on Front Street are in the 12,000 ADT range. So I would not expect any type of congestion issues. Another proposed location we have is just to the west of here. This is in the city of Kinston. They have a 4-lane section on Queen Street, 4-lane with on-street parallel parking. In about 2 years, they're going to go to, this is their vision, they're going back to what they had in the 1950s. They're going to 2 lanes with parallel parking with no center turn lane. This is a little bit different version of a road diet, but I just wanted to just show it to you for your information. What they're trying to do is increase the downtown parking by putting in the diagonal parking. Again, they will be able to double the amount of parking spaces that they have on Queen Street. What they're giving up is the 4-lane undivided section. They're going back to a 2-lane, 2-way street. Your speed limits, I think, are 20 miles per hour through this section, and the goal is not to move traffic. They have an ADT on Queen Street of about 9,000 to 10,000 vehicles, so we don't see an issue with them having a 2-lane section there. Any questions?
So that one you answered already, so you don't predict any traffic jams, any congestion, morning traffic or evening traffic. Is that what you're saying? After doing your study?
Based on the volumes that you have there, no, we don't foresee that because we've implemented road diets on roads with higher ADTs than what you have there, and we have not had that issue.
So looking at First Street going into Pembroke, this is where you're talking about all the way into Pembroke, correct?
Yes.
And that will allow us to have a bicycle on both sides? Yes. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
That's all I have there.
Got something to say?
Go ahead.
I myself disagree with it. Want it to remain 4-lane. Why are we going around in circles? It was a 2-lane, made it a 4-lane. Now you're going to change it back over to a 2-lane. Traffic problems, you have people who complain about it now where we didn't complain about it. I just don't see the benefits. We don't need, we need streets where people can get in and get out. We don't need to back up. We've already had a problem, still have a problem when they talk about Broad Street. I never approved of that. And don't make the whole town a community when you have to drive 15 miles or 20 miles an hour. You may not agree, but that's the way I feel about it. And in the end, I may be here to say it, I may not. Whatever you do, it's going to come right back, and it's going to cost the taxpayers again, because eventually you're going to have to change. New Bern is not the same small city that it used to be. We have more traffic that come here than people think. And when people come in this town, they like to come in and do their business, and they like to get out. And it's not good to have everybody come in, and then if we have a problem at a certain entity, it automatically becomes a full-scale backup. And as it stands, the way it looks, it's the only places going to have 4-lane highways will be Simmons Street and I think Oaks Road area. Those are the only places you're going to have in New Bern that will be like that. Everything else is basically, you may well say, almost falling in a community-type development roads. And I don't approve of it, and that's my opinion. I'll stick by it.
Mr. Rouse, the examples that you showed us up there, I did not see anything that looked like a high-density, concentrated activity area. In other words, I know you mentioned Kinston, but in terms of the other examples that you showed, the road diet transition, I didn't see any evidence of, say, high retail concentration, nor being close to a divided expressway type road where you had on and off ramps. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, the reason I showed the schematic that I did, I wanted to keep it simple because trying to convey the point that what we're doing is reducing your through lanes from four to two. Mm-hmm. But you need to understand is you have heavy volumes of traffic on a 4-lane section, and you've got what you're describing, a heavily developed area where you have a lot of driveway cuts. You have people turning left. Well, with the 4-lane undivided section, what you have are those 2 inside lanes by default become turn lanes. So you're forced into a situation, if you're driving on that section and you're on the inside lane, the car in front of you is turning, and you're trying to pass through, you've either, one, got to stop behind that car, wait for him to turn, or you've got to merge into the other lane. And if it's a congested roadway, you're trying to merge in between cars. And what it creates conflict points, which causes crashes. And it's been shown that when you're below that volume, that threshold of 20,000, which is why the FHWA set that you're not seeing a drop in capacity by going to a 3-lane section because of the efficiency that you gain with the turning movements being separated from the through movements.
Well, I see the point of the safety of having a left turn lane that's dedicated for that purpose, and they're only having to deal with one lane of opposing traffic. But in this particular instance, in this particular location, we have two centers of activity and a third one potentially that's going to come down the pike. One of them is a large church on one side, and the other one is Lawson Creek Park. And I guess part of my question that we've talked about in the past on this is being able to expedite the traffic flow in and out of those activity centers, because your study may count total numbers of vehicles, but what we have to deal with is constituents and motorists that are there at particular times of day, on the weekends, or particular centers of activity, 4th of July as an example, other special events where you're going to have traffic backed up. And I'm not saying that that you can't expedite the flow, but if you take away those 4 lanes in that instance, bike lanes, then our law enforcement, traffic management folks are going to have to be very creative to try to move a lot of vehicles out of those particular areas, as an example. One of the questions or concerns that I have already, having been in that area during a work day with the mayor and other, Alderman Kinsey, city manager, is the speed of traffic when we talk about accommodating bicyclists. I know there are a lot of folks that are interested in cycling, and I applaud that, but my concern is the potential for conflict when you talk about the left turn lane and people trying to get on and off the road there, and you have points of, as you said, 6 points of conflict, so to speak, for bicyclists, and even more concerned about particularly folks going into, say, Lawson Creek Park, making a right turn, and we have cyclists that are moving down that, and that's just a very high activity area. So can you give any thought about give us any thoughts about accommodating the bicyclist lane if you go to the 3-lane road diet concept, and maybe even creating a right turn entry lane into Lawson Creek Park? Has that been considered?
That's a lot, but let me try. Addressing the cyclist issue, you know, what we have found typically when you're able to separate the cycle traffic from the existing lane to a separated lane is going to be to improve the situation that you referenced. I guess the big thing is, and you know, from my perspective, you know, the city of New Bern needs to decide what they want First Street to look like. If you want it to be an expressway to just move traffic, then you're looking at a situation where you're going to try and limit the number of these centers that are locating a lot of traffic on that road, because the more driveway cuts you have, whether you've got a 3-lane, a 4-lane, or a 5-lane section, you're going to slow down that flow. If you want it to be a downtown area where you're drawing people in, you want to have amenities such as pedestrian amenities, bike amenities, then you're looking at something like this. There is no typical section that's going to give you the answer for everything, but as your volumes grow, if First Street, if the volumes of traffic at some point in the future grew beyond that, obviously the situation that you bring up is the case. If you have these big activity centers, you're probably going to be looking at additional signalized intersections. That's going to slow your traffic down even more. I mean, it's a holistic approach to the planning. You know, what is that area going to look like that should really be considered?
Let me ask you a question. On the examples that you showed us, what was the prescribed speed limit for those three-lane diets?
The one in Washington is 35. The one in Kinston, which is downtown, I believe, is 20 miles per hour because it's in the downtown section. So right. two different animals. The one that's more comparative to what you have here will be the one that's in Washington. The only difference being they were trying to gain lane width, where here you have a lot of lane width in your cross section. You could actually add an additional amenity, being bike lanes or whatever.
I think the concern that several of us on the board have is the proximity, the close proximity at this point to the on and off ramps of 70. And in the case of the westbound exit ramp, you come to the top onto Country Club, and you've got actually 3 lanes there. You've got 2 right turn lanes. So how would you accommodate that with your proposal?
Well, a right turn lane would not affect it. You would have a 3-lane section. You could still have your right turn lanes to the sides of those.
But you've got 3 lanes at the top right now, and 2 of those on the right are both right turn lanes. What you're saying is to take away with the three-lane diet. So where is that middle lane going to go, or the far right lane?
You're probably going to be in a situation where you're going to have to taper back out of the 3-lane section once you get up to the interchange. You can't run the 3-lane section all the way through. It would help to have a visual to describe it.
Sure.
Much like what we did in Washington, we had to transition from a 4-lane section, 4-lane divided section into a 3-lane section. And then at the other end, we had to transition into a 5-lane section near where the hospital is. So those transitions, you have to fit those based on the situation that you have. Obviously, in this case, you're going to have to accommodate the turn lanes on the interchanges as they are. Now, the proposed turn lane going into Lawson Creek Park, I can't answer that at this point.
Well, we've looked at it. There's enough shoulder there. I think that's a consideration certainly to expedite the flow into Lawson Creek Park specifically, and if that could be accommodated. And last question: how far would this 3-lane diet go down First Street?
I believe the project was submitted to DPO goes all the way to Broad Street.
To
Broad Street.
To Broad Street.
I just have a couple of questions. First of all, about the bicyclists. I see bicyclists on this road anyway. It looks to me like they're risking their life without a bicycle lane, and they're in the road and they're trying to get into town. Second of all, I understand what you're saying. When I get off at Pembroke coming into town, If you get in that left, there's 2 lanes turning right. If you get in the left turning lane, somebody's turning left into the Y, and it's a potentially dangerous thing. And if you don't know that, and you think, I'm just going to go barreling into town, and you get behind that person, I mean, I've seen things happen. And actually, Mr. Ruggieri, I hate to put you on the spot, but how many accidents? I think he texts me every time he hears about one.
Your question, Alderman Schreiber.
The accidents that you hear just
Sure.
outside your.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's ironic or not. Jeffrey Jay with Development Services. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. I think after the last retreat, the next day, there was a pretty bad accident at about 5 o'clock at that intersection. You know, I heard it from my office, kids screaming. PD fire guys were there in about 30 seconds. I guess that's the good part about that intersection, is it's right next to the fire station. But there's screeching brakes, there's crashes once or twice a month. A crash, screeching brakes all day.
Yeah, I've seen the screeching brakes. I haven't actually
Yeah,
seen
my
them.
office is right there. I listen to it all day long.
So again, it's, Mr. Rouse, it's a safety issue as well. Not only for the bicyclists, but mainly for the motorists.
The biggest gain that you'll receive out of a road diet will be the safety improvements, because you'll see a reduction in crashes. Because you're taking those turning movements and putting them in a dedicated center turn lane.
And again, this is what you do for a living?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
I had a couple questions. One would be if you were on Spencer Avenue trying to get on Queen Street, or if you're on Queen Street trying to take a left on First Street. A lot of times, I'm sure anybody that drives the city, it takes a while sometimes to get out because of the mainly traffic coming from Pembroke into town, from the Pembroke exit. And my concern is that if there was more traffic backed up with 2 lanes versus the 4 lane, that the wait time to try to get across from Spencer to Queen, or from Queen taking a left, would be greater. Could you comment on that? Do you anticipate with 1 less lane that traffic will be more backed up on that road, which would cause the inability to get out? The other concern would be if you were leaving, say, Broad Street on First Street, and let's say somebody built something on that corner lot across from the development services, and people need to turn left. I know what's going to happen there. They're going to put a concrete barrier so that you can't take a left. I mean, that's what's going to happen there, just like at the at Dr. Martin Luther King Boulevard and Glen Burnie. It's going to be one of those scenarios. Can you comment on those concerns?
Are you talking about the concerns about the barriers or the islands?
Well, I'm not so much concerned about barriers as I am the fact, again, that, you know, I will tell you, many times, and I would assume by anybody in here, that you kind of done it to get from Spencer over to Queen at times when you've been sitting there waiting, trying to get across those 4 lanes, and there's a lot of traffic activity. And of course the visibility is not that good to begin with. You know, you kind of, does anybody do that besides me?
Just you.
So I'm a little concerned, you know, if you reduce the lanes, if that's going to be an issue. And of course that's the expert really, because he's looking out the window, seeing this all day long now that you're over there. So Jeff's seen a lot of this.
Anytime you've got a side street tying into a 4-lane highway, 4-lane undivided, and you reduce those 4 lanes of traffic down to 3 lanes of traffic, it's going to be easier to cross that road or to turn left onto that road. I don't think you're going to see a big change turning right, because you're going to turn right. The biggest issue is going to be the people trying to go all the way across and the people trying to turn left on that facility. Because forget about the width, the feet, the distance across. Right now, you're having to contend with 4 lanes of traffic, 4 independent lanes, 4 independent thinkers and vehicles, and what are they going to do and trying to anticipate that? Where if you go to a 3-lane section, if you're turning left, you've only got to watch 1 lane of traffic.
Yeah, another question. I just want some clarification on this. We want to improve First Street with all we've talked about doing, and in conjunction with MPO and the DOT and everything. I don't know that I can speak for myself. I don't know that I researched and asked the probing questions that we're asking now when I probably should have a year ago or whatever. So in what way, if the board decides to stay with 4 lanes or go to the 3-lane diet design, does that impact the ability to move forward with the things that we want to see happen on First Street?
Well, I think from a budget standpoint, you know, in the project total cost, we were looking to do sidewalks both sides of the road to assist in the resurfacing cost along with the restriping of that First Avenue corridor such that it would accommodate the 3 lanes and the bicycle lane. So if we decide not to go to the 4 lanes, there would be no reason to invest the money at that time into the resurfacing and restriping. It would strictly be just the sidewalks and landscaping improvements at that time. Would you agree to that, Jeff?
Yeah, right now we're moving forward. We got a board resolution of support to provide a 31% match, I think, to the total project cost through the SPOT program, the STIP program, sorry, and the acronyms, with our MPO. If the board chooses not to do so, we have to withdraw that, and we'll essentially be back at the drawing board.
And as far as timelines and things, are we missing, if we have to redesign, are we missing dates?
Yeah, I don't.
September, the approval date.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure.
I wouldn't say so much as the design portion because you're using the existing infrastructure. I would say for the asphalt surface area. For the sidewalks, obviously, they're still going to have to be designed to that. One of the advantageous things, John, you might be able to comment to this, is through submitting this to the MPO, and I no offense to the DOT, obviously, but we're looking to submit this through the scoring process, and if approved, as the board has already previously approved, we're looking to pay, is it 32.5% of the cost of this? So therefore, that means that the state is willing to pick up the 67.5% to make it 100%. So we're going to get 67.5% of this project funded from DOT versus if we don't do this and fund it through this particular scoring process, then we're probably going to be hoeing that 100%.
Next question, with respect to what you just said, it's no turning back on Broad Street with the way that's designed and the infrastructures that's in place. If we, 5 years from now, couldn't live with this design and decide to go back to the 4 lanes, how locked in are we with DOT with this design to get that DOT funding?
We would just have to restripe it.
I mean, so if 6 months from now we don't like it, we can pay $30,000 then
Probably
restripe it?
I talked to John. What would you estimate the cost, John?
I would estimate the cost to restripe it probably $10,000 to $15,000.
But so if we to get things moving, if we went with the 3 lanes and then decided we didn't like it, we're not obligated under DOT that we can put it back. Not that that's anything we would be doing, but I'm just asking. And that's not, I'm not circumventing the process saying that. I'm just saying that there's a lot of people in New Bern that would retro put Broad Street back the way it was if they could do it, but we can't based on the improvements that are in place. Which the concern really is fire trucks and ambulances being able to adequately traverse that area of town because it's one of the busiest areas of town, probably, Chief, one of the most accident-prone areas of town. So you've considered accidents as far as ambulances and fire truck activity, ability to?
We have. Typically, that is not an issue because if that fire truck is coming up behind you, lights flashing, sirens blaring, you're going to get out of his way. You're going to venture over to that center lane. You're going to go through there. You got to remember, your curb-to-curb width of pavement is not changing.
Absolutely.
It's just the striping and the number of lanes. So there's still the same amount of room out there now. You know, I can see cars are going to move over into that bike lane. Cars are going to move over into that center turn lane to get out of the way of the fire truck, the EMS truck, or whatever. That's one of the benefits they found in Washington. Now, they had another issue. They had lanes so narrow that the trucks could not go down a single lane. They had to take both of them, which caused even more problems with delay. It improved the situation they have there, but again, they had a little different situation. But choking, a lot of people consider, choking down 4 lanes of traffic into 2, and that's not what you experience, because you essentially only have 2 through lanes anyway on a 4-lane section. Those 2 inside lanes are quasi-turn lanes anyway, because you're always coming up behind cars wanting to turn left. And when you do that, you either got to stop behind them, or you've got to figure out a way to get in the other lane. And if you cause an accident or crash, well, you're stopping traffic doing that as well. And that typically happens at your highest, your peak times in the mornings and afternoons.
I think Alderman White had a question.
Yes, I had 2, and that'll be my final question. One, I heard Jeff talk about accidents. I grew up over in that area. Accidents normally would occur there at Pollard and First. And the reason those accidents occur, even when I was a little boy, that most people run the stoplight, okay? The light changes quick. And then when you find people coming out of off the bypass, and they may be stuck in that left lane, those people are either coming off the job or they're trying to hurry up, get home, when basically you do not have to rush, because the person that's gonna make the left turn normally give their signals. If they don't give the signal, you shouldn't be right on the back of them. And traffic study flows. It'll back up in that left lane, and that right lane will keep on running, and then they move over to the left lane. With that light on First and Pollard, I think the light, even though it changes like it's supposed to, or like they may have it set, it probably need a bigger delay in there. I've seen a tractor trailer come off the bypass and run right dead into the back of a person. Okay, there's a whole bunch of reasons that what we're talking about is important to us, because it's the ideal of not getting redundant, going back over stuff. People, we live here. A lot of people don't live here. A lot of people are making decisions for people who live in this area. And I just don't agree with it. I don't think we're supposed to look like everybody else. A long time we didn't, but now if one town got something, all of a sudden we need the same thing, or we need to look like them. We don't need to look like them. We're a unique city, so we can do what we need to do in the way we need to do it. Other than that, those are about the only 2 things I think I need to talk about. And my decision will be however they're going to vote. I might be a little opposite.
Okay, Alderman Odom.
Yes, sir. 2 questions. Alderman Blackison mentioned special events. So, Jeff, Chief, any consideration there with? I know we don't typically build a road and try to build that road with a special event in mind, but leaving Lawson Creek on July 4th, I know that's kind of a nightmare. Can those center turn lane and the right turn lane be blocked off for one-way traffic?
I would see no difference, again, we're not changing the width of the road, and we usually override the markings by cones. As you probably notice, we have those cones out, so we will override the markings by the cone and give directions that way.
And then the Temple Baptist Church, I know there's a lot of traffic. Usually there's an officer there directing traffic.
I would only surmise that it's easier to get people over 3 lanes than 4 lanes. That would be my guess.
Okay. And then the last question is, I'm hoping that we consider all the changes that's going on with First Street Corridor with the different uses of the city warehouse versus proposals.
It's interesting that you bring up that concept, because as part of the C&I process, some of the needs identified were specific to pedestrian and bicycle accommodations within that right-of-way corridor. This accomplishes all 3, both vehicular, pedestrian, and vehicular accommodations for that particular section. The intent of the city market is to bring pedestrian traffic to that particular corridor. Those who may not have access to transportation that want to come there and through our Golden Leaf Grant have an educational opportunity for workforce development, where they may have an opportunity to come there to buy, fresh produce or whatever, if that's the route that we go. Whatever route it is, the intent is to accommodate all modes of transportation in the 3-lane with the turning, multi-directional turning lane in the middle, along with the bikes, along with the pedestrian access, provides all of those opportunities. Identified in the CNI, identified as part of the redevelopment of the market site, getting people walking, getting people healthy, getting them to our park. They can bike to our Lawson Creek Park. They can walk to our Lawson Creek Park to take advantage of those amenities. I think about the children that could potentially walk from the Craven Terrace or the Duffy Field area, walk up a safe sidewalk or bike up a safe bike lane to get to the new recreation facility that we purchased over there on First Street so that they can have access to the water or have access to Lawson Creek Park. The intent of this has gone, and a lot of staff have put a lot of thought and time into this, and I mean, that's why you hire us as professionals to provide you recommendations. My background is in highway engineering. I would not bring something to you if I didn't feel that it was a good idea. I understand you have a different perspective and you hear from your constituents, both those who feel that you should do it and those that you shouldn't. But one of the reasons why we wanted to bring John here tonight is from a division highway perspective to hear what his engineering perspective is as well. So that's my answer to that. Is, I mean, we're trying to accommodate all modes of transportation in that particular corridor.
Mr. Kinsey, you got a question?
Yes, sir. I've heard everybody, I've heard everything real well, the moving parts and the accommodating and the moving. Now, what about the growth that within 5 years? I haven't heard a lot about the growth. What are we gonna do when everything grows and we have more people using the highway? Just like when the springtime comes, you can go on you can take your smartphone and say, what's ahead? We have a new park that we're gonna actually be renting out kayaks and that sort of things there. How many folks are gonna actually add to that number going down from a 4-lane to a 2-lane? How long would you actually have to wait in line? I know we said crossing the street would be much easier. I heard that part very well. That a 2-lane is much easier to cross going from a 4-lane, but you still have the same amount of traffic coming off that same line coming off. So now the lines are gonna be longer. Is it not? That's gonna be shorter.
Alderman Kinsley, welcome to my world. You know, trying to look forward into the future and see what the facility is going to look like is an issue. Obviously, yes, if First Street went from, I think it's in the 10 to 12,000 vehicle per day range now to over 20 to 25 to 30, would a 3-lane section work? Absolutely not. But you're also going to be in a situation then where you're going to have to limit access in there. You're going to have to close up driveways. You're going to have to do other things. It comes back down to what does the city of New Bern want that road to be? Do they want it to be an expressway to move people at high speeds, or do they want it to be a destination? And it's really that simple. There's no magic bullet. There's no typical section that will work forever and ever. You know, we've tried things in the past and we don't do them anymore. A good example is 5-lane sections. I don't build those anymore. Highway 24 in Carteret County is a good example. It's a bad design. It does not work anymore. There's a lot of safety issues with that. You bring up a valid point. I guess I would ask you, how far in the future do you see it taking for the traffic on First Street to double on average? Well, not just an event, but daily totals to double. That's decades out in the future typically, unless you have just some major change in that area.
But in the springtime, traffic seems to be heavier more than in the wintertime. And
True.
especially going towards the beach, using that area there, coming off of that thoroughfare there. That's the only concern that concerns me. I wish, like the mayor just said earlier, I wish I would ask these questions early on, but at that time, I didn't see what was coming, until it actually hit me. And then I went, ooh, okay. And it's just looking to try to understand where we're going to be at in 3 years with, is Temple Church, is that church going to grow? Is St. Paul Church is going to grow? Is the park, is it going to grow with the activity that the city is bringing in? Like you say, what are we looking for? What are we looking at to do? Right. How are we going to do this? I guess this is what this discussion is all about tonight.
Yes, sir.
Do we make this lane no turn lane?
Yes.
Do we just make you turn at the other end of the street to make that turn? How difficult are you going to make it for the people? How difficult are you making it for me? But it's just trying to find out where we can bring this thing together and make it work for everybody.
Yes, sir.
I guess that's what we're trying to decide tonight. How can we do that? And a lot of the things have been repeated, so I don't have to go there because it's been said for me. But how can we do that? You mentioned a road. Did the state own that road that was too small? Why didn't you make it wider, you know?
You talking about 264 in Washington?
Yes, sir, that
It was-
road that you said that.
That section of road was built, I think, in the 1940s.
Right.
And
With new technology.
well,
right?
in the 1940s, if you think about vehicle widths, you know, the fire trucks in 1940s weren't as big as they are now. You didn't have 18-wheelers on the road. Vehicles tended to be smaller, speeds were lower, volumes were much lower at that time. You know, it's an iteration that the department's gone through over the decades. You know, it goes from 3 to 4 lanes. Now they found that, you know, it's best at 3. It's much like what I just described with 5-lane sections. You know, general public will think, well, hey, if you got 4 lanes, 5's better. Well, we found that's not necessarily the case, you know, from a safety standpoint. And like you said, there's a lot of things you got to look at. What do you want the area to look like? Do you want it to be, you know, the safety issues that you have there? You have to kind of take all of that in consideration. One benefit you do have with this type of improvement, you don't have any hardened structures that are going in. If it goes in and it's just so terrible, all you got to do is restripe it. It's not like you've built roundabouts or, you know, these structures out there that will be immensely expensive to remove.
So you're seeing, let's say in 30 days, all of a sudden we want to change our mind and say, hey, this is not working out for us. We can actually go back to the 4-lane, is what you're saying.
You could with, yes, sir. I would implore you to give it more than 30 days.
No, I'm
but,
just saying, you know, it's hypothetical
Right.
thinking. So, answer this again for me because I'm a little concerned here. And we go down from a 4-lane to a 2-lane. Now, we have a lot of traffic, the same amount of traffic is coming through. So do the traffic gets longer, it moves smoother?
What you typically experience on a 4-lane undivided section, if you get a lot of traffic, say the peak flow in the morning and afternoon, you get this accordion effect, people slowing up, speeding up, slowing down, speeding up, slowing down. What you find with the 3-lane section during those times, they slow down to a uniform speed. But a lot of people think, oh, well, that's going to take much longer. I actually went to Washington to experience this myself, drove through that section during peak hour. Your times don't change from getting from point A to point B takes essentially the same amount of time. You just eliminate that accordion effect. You eliminate the weaving that you're having to do. If you're on the inside lane, somebody's turning in front of you, you got to weave over here. The safety issues get better. Your accidents, when they happen, typically are going to happen during those peak hours. They're going to happen at the worst possible time when the most traffic's out there. They're going to slow down traffic.
You can't avoid an accident because that's going to happen.
It's going to happen, but
you
can reduce the number. Much like what we've done in the city of Havelock, and I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, you know, the median issues we had down there. We've had a substantial reduction in accidents in Havelock.
Alderman Black.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Mr. Rouse, in your early picture examples you had up there, I'm trying to remember what you had in the way of stoplights. That one, go back, you just passed it. No. No, the other way. That one, oh, you can right past that first one. Right there.
Right there. Oop. Right. Yeah. Oop.
It's not so easy to design these roads, is it?
There. Is that the one you're speaking
No,
of?
no, I'm talking about the actual picture there of the road.
Western North Carolina picture.
That right there.
Okay.
What changes were made, if any, regarding stoplight placement?
Nothing with placement. Your timing had to be changed because, again, you're changing the lane configuration. And what I mean by changing, you have to change the cycle times. The signal can cycle through all 4 legs on a faster cycle.
Okay. I think as a couple of our folks up here have mentioned, the stoplights on First Street right now, you've got one there at I guess Pollock, and you got one down at Broad. Is that a consideration in terms of this changing those lights? And would you have a designated left turn arrow at both of those intersections?
We would have to look at that.
Okay.
That's obviously something we would have to look at based on does the turning volumes meet the warrants for installing that. But that's something we would obviously look at, yes, sir.
Okay. Let me mention, the mayor touched on this and you said, welcome to my world. I want to welcome you to my world because if you drive down Broad Street through 5 Points, I don't know who the guy or gal was that designed that intersection, but you can forget about the fire truck getting around because they can't. There's only one lane there and you have spaces for 2 vehicles to make the assigned left turn off of Broad Street. So the fire truck isn't going to get past there, nor is the ambulance, because you've got a side parking there on the street. Have you been down there lately?
When I started work with DOT, it was in New Bern back in 1990, and 5 Points, the configuration is like it was now. It's a holdover from, good Lord, decades ago. It's not an efficient intersection because of the skew of the roads that enter into the intersection.
Alderman Blackson, I'll also add on that too. On that, I mean, I don't think we can really relate what the cross section is for Broad Street for what this cross section is going to be, because you have an island in the middle that restricts that. Secondly, you don't have a great deal of stacking distance on those left turn only lanes versus here, you're going to have a dedicated left turn lane the entire length of that road. So you're going to have a lot of stacking distance, which will not hold up the traffic.
What we're being asked to consider here is to develop a level of confidence that the plan is going to work. Okay, I think I just asked the question coming up the off-ramp there where you've got 2 right turn lanes, and I didn't get an answer, and I don't have confidence in terms of how those will be accommodated. When I drive down Broad Street, I don't have a confidence level that somebody really thought through having more than 2 car lengths enabled with the island structure there to make a left turn so that you've got better flow of traffic. So this is about confidence, and the people that we hear from, you know, are concerned, some both ways, and I recognize that, but eventually the buck stops here. I mean, yes, you are the traffic engineer and you got to come up with the best plan. Don't expect you to be able to predict the future, but I think the quality of the question is more important than the timing of the question, regardless of how the issue is being addressed. But in any event, that's where I'm coming from here, is concerns. You have, you know, given me confidence here in terms of right lane, a dedicated right turn lane into Lawson Creek Park. I get the left turn portion, and I understand and I recognize the safety advantage of having that designated center lane for making left turns. But that ramp coming up 70, I don't think has that been even looked at or considered in this proposal?
Is it part of the project submitted? Yes, sir.
So what would happen to that other lane coming up that ramp?
As part of this project, we're going to have to look at the entire length of it. If there are additional lanes warranted, we'll build those, including the one at Lawson Creek Park. We'll also have to look at the signal systems. If you go from a 4-lane to a 3-lane section, we're going to have to modify the timing on the signals. That's a given. Also, we're going to have to look at the volumes of the left turns. You know, do the volumes exceed what that signal can reasonably handle, you know, in a cycle? All those issues will have to be looked at.
From the perspective of what John's mentioning here is to your question regarding the 2 right turns coming off of Highway 70 going west. As you come up that exit, there currently is a straight left and 2 rights, I think is the way it goes. So what would generally happen in that design? John and his staff would look at it from a standpoint of the signalization. There is a signal there, is that correct?
Yes.
So from the signalization, if it has to go down to 1 right turn lane, then they would change the timing of what that 1 turn lane would do. Obviously, a right turn movement, you can move at any time as long as traffic's not coming. But if it's necessary for them to adjust, you know, a stop as you're coming through, say from Trent Woods or the Pembroke area, then they may hold that traffic a little bit longer to accommodate more turns so you don't stack distance down the exit ramp. That's what you would generally do, so you change the timing on the light signals. And what you would do also is you would narrow you basically would, if you're coming from, say, the Broad Street area, you're coming up towards that intersection, what he's talking about is you would bring that lane configuration back down to accommodate the turning movements necessary for that particular location. So if you're looking at turning onto is that Rim Avenue, I think it is, or Rim Street, I'm sorry, Rim Street. So as you're coming off the right, you may jump over into that left turn lane, so you're not holding up the rest of the traffic that wants to go straight or right during that time. You're sitting in there waiting for an opportunity, and you probably will have more of an opportunity being that it's single lane traffic, and you reduce those conflicts that he showed on those.
Yeah, I think the left turn center lane, that's an easy one. That's easy to pick that up. It's the right lane, and as the mayor said, coming back into traffic or trying to cross over, that's where it gets kind of sticky. So I understand. I know this is a work in progress. So appreciate your efforts.
Yes, sir.
Alderman Taylor.
Yes, sir. For 7 years, I've represented Pembroke. Those are my constituents. And for 7 years, the majority of the residents in Pembroke has voiced their concern of bicycle traffic and foot traffic coming from Pembroke into New Bern. And I've been hearing it. Not all of them, but you can't help and fix everything for everybody. But the majority of people, and I've been over there and I've been seeing it, and some of the aldermen have said it tonight, that the traffic, foot traffic, as well as the bicycle traffic, is very unsafe getting from Pembroke to New Bern or from New Bern to Pembroke. I represent Pembroke. Some people have heard some concerns from Pembroke people that don't want this issue. I was on the left side of this fence before I've heard this presentation. And now I'm on the fence right now, leaning toward the right side. Because for 7 years, people have been complaining, having concerns about safety. Some people here have heard from people that don't want it to happen. This proposal does 3 objectives: vehicle, foot, and bicycle traffic. It captures all those that my majority of my constituents from that area are concerned with. And being that I represent them, I'm glad this is presented tonight before us, because it helps the majority of the people in that area. Also, it does 3 more things: Chief Summers, Chief Boyd, and EMS from Craven Regional Medical Center, emergency vehicles. You talked about that. If the vehicles are coming, you can either move to the left, they can move to the right, or the emergency vehicles go down the center. You still got availability versus Broad Street, where you don't have that movability for emergency vehicles. That presentation right there allows. I was overseas, and the roads were a lot like that, some of the areas. Emergency vehicles go straight down the middle, or they go right down and the vehicles move to the right or left, go straight on down. So that helps out many different ways. The mayor brought up, and some people bring up in the community, what if we don't like it? He brought it up, you answered. Mr. Overhart, I heard him, seen him shaking his head. We can change back if we wish to. That's a great thing, because I had that question too. The next question that was brought up was the turning lanes at the lights. You would definitely need turning lanes, because without turning lanes, there's problems. We can do this with this program. Broad Street, you couldn't do it. I was here when they put the 2 lanes for 5 Points area. I wanted more area, wanted to move it back further, but the survey, the plans didn't allow it. So we had to put what we had. At first, there was no turning light. You just had to turn on green and wish that you made a cross. But we fought, Ms. Overhart was here, that we had that turning lane put back in place. So this proposal makes me go to the right side of the fence. So I feel that's a great program, great proposal. It helps the people that's going to Pembroke, people that's coming from Pembroke. So that's my say on the whole thing. At first I wasn't, but now, great presentation, DOT, Mark, and everybody.
Alderman Shaw, would you have a?
Well, I just want to add, I agree with Alderman Taylor. It not only helps the people in Pembroke, it helps the people in Ghent.
Yeah.
And the mayor mentioned about Spencer. I was going on the First Street corridor, and I saw somebody on a bicycle coming out of Spencer, trying to go across 4 lanes of traffic, where now they'd only have to go across 2. And the same thing's true coming from Walt Bellamy. So you're helping the people coming from Walt Bellamy as well. So it's for everyone, it's for all the citizens, and the safety. No speed has been impacted. You're going to get from one end to the other end in the same amount of time, and it's safe. So you've cut down on the accidents. So again, I agree with Alderman Taylor.
Okay, does any other alderman have any other comments, questions, concerns? At this time, for clarification purposes, we don't need any action. We're going to proceed with what was approved.
Unless I hear something,
Unless the board wanted to make any changes.
unless they want to make a change, we're proceeding forward as we have planned, and the board had approved to submit it through the MPO for scoring for a 3-lane section with bike lanes.
Okay, so anybody else have any questions, concerns, statements? Mr. Rouse, we really appreciate you coming out, and we know you have the best interests of our city at heart. And
Yes, sir.
again,
Thank you for
on
the
some of the
invitation.
things you've helped us out with, we appreciate the representation of General Overholt and yourself on these important matters.
Sure.
And
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, sir. Okay, at this time, we have several items here. Item number 11, consider adopting a resolution initiating the upset bid process for 400 Cypress Street. Mr. Stevens?
Thank you, Mayor. I had proposed to present these tonight. I've had some concerns that from some of the board members that they may wish to pull these upon further evaluation.
Yeah, was it the pleasure of the board that anybody wanted to pull any of those items, or you want to go ahead and discuss them?
I think since there's a committee that's formed to look at this process, this might be one that would fall under the new process. I think it's complicated, and I think that the committee would be able to address the concerns before we look at it.
Yes, sir.
If I could just make one comment on that committee. Alderman Blackston, Taylor, and myself are planning to meet in the near future to accomplish this. And I just wanted to say it's really twofold. And the reason I want to make this comment is because I appreciate what these folks did. They made a bid that was 25% of tax value, which is what we established at our retreat. So I don't want that to go without saying. But I think another aspect of our ad hoc committee is going to be to actually identify parcels that we as a city and as a board want to dispose of. This may not be a parcel that we want to dispose of from a redevelopment standpoint. So I agree. I'm not prepared.
Question, statement. As Alderman Odom just alluded to, we as a board decided that 25% was what we're requiring people to make a bid for a property or land, correct? These people did just that, so we should honor what we put forth, and they did what they supposed that we required them to do, and they did it. Why should we not allow them to obtain what they're trying to obtain? I know we're gonna meet, but we put a 25%, they offer 25%, now we trying to say you can't do that right now?
I think the main item here that the board is behind times on is that, technically speaking, the way I see the website, until somebody does some maintenance on it, we're kind of indicating that anything out there that somebody wants to make a bid on is for sale. And I think Mr. Odom, Alderman Odom, had just mentioned that much haste is needed, that the city needs to go in and identify items that are city-owned property that we have absolutely no interest in selling. I'm not saying this is one of them, but right now, that's not the case with the website. The website needs to have only strategic properties that we want to sell. And the question is, with the garden that's been over there, you know, Alderman Parham and others that have operated the garden over there and other things. Is this a piece of property that that has no utility for the city? And but again, that's part of that ad hoc committee that's going to look at. Alderman White.
Oh, I have a disagreement with that, Mayor.
Okay.
Any property that the city receive or have a lien on or whatever it is according to the old rule, and I may have to ask the attorney on this, the property would go up for sale and the citizens has a choice, a right to bid on that property. If we set the 25% where, and I probably wouldn't even agree to that, and that whoever bid that 25% on that, or if no one overbid that person or whatever, I think that person should have the right to have that property. Other than that, if I'm disappointing the attorney about...
Yeah, Alderman White, members of the board, I think that goes to the heart of the issue, and that's whether or not the board has identified what's legally called surplus real property. What we don't want to do is leave ourselves in a position where someone makes a bid on City Hall, and then you're faced with deciding whether City Hall gets sold or not under your policy. And I think what Alderman Alderman is suggesting is that the committee identify surplus property as opposed to all city property, so that when someone makes a bid, they have confidence that it's one that you're going to entertain and start the process on. Because once you start the process, we start incurring fees for advertising and administrative time, and then in that process, and you don't want to sell it, we've spent a lot of time and money for no particular reason.
Attorney, if I'm not mistaken, and it's not a joking matter, but if the city hall has a lien on it, then all of us need to be out of job.
Well, there are no liens on any city property.
I mean, I'm saying, you're using that.
I did, but what I'm saying to you is all the property that we own is free and clear. We don't have property, none of our properties have liens on them, as far as I understand, other than some broad financing packages we have for police station and maybe something else.
Okay.
What I was saying, and I'll clarify, what Alderman Odom saying makes sense, and we can live with it, and I can live with it. But the individuals, and I haven't spoken with them, the individuals has already made a bid based on what we put forth. So why should we say, no, you can't have it right now, but you did all the requirements where you cross the T's and dot the I's based on what we put forth, and now you just want to say no for right now or table it?
I guess in the spirit of my thought during the retreat was to get rid of some of these ludicrous bids of $1,000 for something that's worth $30. That was to get us kind of staff time, save them the time and effort behind that. So we do have a bid that met the criteria that we established, so I'm prepared to make a motion if you want that.
Yeah. And if you don't mind, I'll just add real quick to kind of answer Alderman Taylor's question as well. Regardless, I mean, an individual could come in and offer 100% of the value of the property. I would bring that before the board just like 25%. The board could choose at that point whether or not to entertain that and sell it or to keep it. It's really the board's discretion as to how they wish to dispose of property. And so that is entirely, it doesn't matter what the value is but what I have heard is, and what staff was given direction on was, at a minimum, 25% was going to be, but at this point, I brought this before you, and it's the board's decision whether they wish to pursue it, whether they wish to table it until the policy can be adjusted or whatever, and that's entirely what the board's discretion is.
Yeah, thank you. But I'm not belabor this too long. It's just that I'm okay. I agree with Alderman Odom. I agree with what you said, and Alderman Blackman as well. We're going to meet, and then we make a decision on from henceforth. But as of right now, we should be fair to the individuals to at least hear it on the board, make a decision on the board tonight versus tabling something that we've already put in place and they did what they had to do. Tabling, I feel, is unfair to whoever it is.
What do we have in that property with the demolition? About 32,000.
That's just cost, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah, I think
that's hard cost in demolition, aside from the value of the property.
Yeah, there was significant lead-based paint issues, I think, that we had to take care of, or asbestos, one of the two.
And why we're deep in the weeds here, let me make it a little worse, just so that we're all clear. This is a two-step process. Anyone, as City Manager said, anyone is free to make an offer at any time for any value. And procedurally, it comes before you to decide to start the process or not. I don't want to have the impression that because we're here, by default, we're taking the next step. It is your decision, for example, to be ridiculous again, if this were an offer for City Hall, you would say no and we'd move on. So that rule applies to every property. There's no presumption that when you make the offer, it's going to go through the upset bid process. So this is step one, and it's your discretion. Step two is once it goes through that upset bid process, it may get to a number that you're still dissatisfied with. So after we've spent the time and money going through that process, the board still has to decide to sell or not sell. So I just want to make sure that we're clear on how the steps work.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion. You know, what was just said there in terms of the amount of money that was put into the property to get it to where it is now with the old structure that was there. And this has been a concern of mine with many of these properties that have unfit dwellings on them, either before or after the sale. We have a number of properties that we have identified that have got to be taken down, and then it falls upon the taxpayers to pay that bill. And I don't think that that's a fair consideration. And I agree with Alderman Taylor and Alderman that yes, we are in the process as a committee to look at this, but I would make a motion not to accept this on the basis of the fact that the taxpayers have $32,000 invested in this property, and that cost needs to be considered, I think.
Second.
Further discussion, we have a motion second. Alderman Taylor.
That what Alderman Blackson makes sense, but we also said we in the work session and then we came in open session and said 25% of the property value of the property. We didn't say we wanted to recoup all the funds that was put into demolition, whatever. We said 25%. Somewhere I'm missing something.
I think the 25% kind of popped up with the old tax values, and now, you know, new tax values came out. I don't really know. I really wasn't much on the 25% rule myself. I was all about a proper marketing strategy of in today's world, any and all means, be it gov.deal or whatever, to expeditiously, optimally market and get the biggest price you can for a piece of property.
Mayor, I would just say that, again, the 25% was a starting point to weed out some of the low bid offers. The 25% came to us, and again, as Attorney said, it's our decision now.
I think the 25% rule, though, has resulted in a miscommunication with the public that we have a lot of properties out here that are not surplus, and I'm not saying what this is, that's the pleasure of the board to decide, that we have now said, give us 25% and it's yours. That's the mentality thinking with some of the policy actions that we've done in the last year.
I would have to go back and clarify, but I believe the conversation was to save staff time, energy, and effort. Don't bring us a bid unless it's 25% of tax value. Then we would consider it at that point in time. That's what I'm recommending.
Okay, now we do have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? And Madam Clerk, if you would just refresh us on the motion so that we all know exactly what we're going to be voting on in just a minute.
It was a motion not to accept the offer.
Okay. And again, we'll continue to discuss if the board has any further comments or questions. Yes, sir.
I understand what you just said, and you know, it's like, are we going to keep our word and what we said we're going to do? I mean, hear me out. Hear me out.
I hear you. I hear what
if you
you're saying.
said we're going to do the 5%, I mean the 25%, you know, why say we're going to do something and then turn around and don't do it?
That's a good question.
I think think what we're saying is the 25% was just a starting point. We never said we were going to accept everybody that gives us 25, and that was until the committee can come up with a plan that's clear. It was sort of, let's at least put that out there so we don't have all these ludicrous bids between now and the time the committee makes a recommendation. And I want to wait to hear what the committee is going to recommend. That's what we're saying.
The old policy, where it is old policy, is not, the city wasn't to be in it to make money. It would be in it to make sure the property is distributed back out so they can receive tax off of those properties. It wasn't about money. If it was about money, then some things that I heard from some people questioning me now about, where we probably talk about some other time, that they can't see how that issue happened, and this me talking to myself now.
Okay, we're going to have a roll call starting with Alderman Odom. And this is on the, now there were two parcels there, and your motion was just on, because the other parcel is contiguous, so did you want, your motion was for one, and we'll just do the second one separate. The one with the parcel number is contiguous to it, and it was part of that. But
We do have we're talking about the parcel that had the Phoenix House property structure on it, is that correct?
But that's 11, and then 12 is a similar parcel contiguous to it. Okay, I'll start with, we're going to do item number 11. Alderman Odom?
Alderman Odom?
Yes.
Alderman White?
This was to approve the 25%?
No, sir, it's a motion not to accept the offer.
I say yes. Hold it. I meant no.
That's good.
Alderman Kinsey?
No.
Mayor Outlaw?
Yes.
Alderman Scheibel?
Yes.
Alderman Taylor?
No.
Alderman Blackiston?
Yes.
And what is your vote, Madam Clerk? We
have 4 in favor and 3 against.
Okay, we're going to go to item number 12 this time, which is a parcel contiguous to it, a much smaller parcel. And what is the pleasure of the board on that parcel?
Make a motion to decline the offer.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Odom, seconded by Alderman Scheibel. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call starting with Alderman Blackiston.
Alderman Blackiston?
Yes.
Alderman Taylor?
No.
Alderman Scheibel?
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw?
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey?
No.
Alderman White?
No.
Alderman Odom?
Yes.
And your tally is?
4 to 3.
At this time, we're going to go to item number 13, consider adopting a resolution to sell 619 Second Avenue. Mr. Stevens.
Thank you, members of the board. This one's been before you before, has gone through the process. Property located at 619 2nd Street. It was acquired April 2013 through tax foreclosure. The initial offer of $3,000 was received in October of 2015. After receiving approval from the city and the county to initiate the upset bid process, several increased bids were received over a period of time, with the last highest bid being submitted by Jesse L. Mars Sr. in the amount of $6,350. The city's costs in the property are $2,241.67. The city's share of that sale price will be approximately 40.913% of that, and that equates to somewhere around $1,150. Obviously, we have some advertising costs that will have to come out of that. This parcel contains a structure that was built in 1966, has a tax value of $18,110. The house will need to be brought up to the city's minimum housing requirements should the city and county accept this final offer. And I will add that this is a property that was going through the process prior to the 25% rule. So this one is to the point where we've advertised, gone through the process, and it's at the point where we were accepting the actual offer.
I'd like to make a motion that we
Well, go ahead.
adopt the resolution to sell 619 2nd Avenue.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Taylor, seconded by Alderman Odom. Is there further discussion?
Yes, Mayor, I was just going to make one comment. I think this is one of those good examples that we've got a structure on this property that if we don't do anything with it, we're most likely going to tear it down, and the city's going to have even more cost incurred into a parcel with a minimum tax value. So I think this is a good example to show how the differences of these parcels and properties wash out.
Further discussion? Seeing none, we'll start with the roll call with Alderman Odom.
Alderman Odom.
Yes.
Alderman White.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey.
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw.
Yes.
Alderman Scheibel.
Yes.
Alderman Taylor.
Yes.
Alderman Blackiston.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 14, consider adopting an ordinance to amend the fiscal year 15-16 current general fund. Mr. Stevens.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. From time to time, the finance director and I will be evaluating the city's debt service that is out there. We began looking at the general fund balance, and I know all of y'all have been aware of our general fund balance as of June 30, 2015 was approximately 52%. We have two loans that have interest rates above 3% that we are looking to get guidance from the board as to direction to pay off those loans. The amount totaled would be $710,137. By paying off these loans in the current year, the total interest savings will be approximately $60,739. In addition, the repayment will result in budgetary savings of approximately $180,000 for fiscal year 16-17. Approval of this action, along with the previous direction from the board to implement specific projects and pay for them from fund balance, various projects that you've approved throughout the last several months, that will result, if we were to do this, to reduce our general fund balance, just to kind of give you as to where we are, would be at 39.09% from the 52 we were at the close of June 30, 2015. Myself, J.R. Sabatelli, Finance Director, answer any kind of questions you may have.
Were you okay on that 174,000, the railroad depot portion of that? Was these figures good?
Yeah, J.R. is going to, you can detail the school of government and the train depot portion of it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The school of government portion of the $174,000 for that, the amendment on 8/13/15, $110,000 of that was the school of government activity that we're doing as far as appraising those 3 or 4 sites and going through that process. The train depot portion was $64,553. That money was actually received on June 9th of this of last fiscal year, and because we received the money so late in the year, it was not able to be budgeted into the current fiscal year. So therefore, we rolled it. We were able to roll it into the current year and to utilize those funds. Spoke with Public Works Director Matt Montaigne. That project, I believe, is completed.
It's really a matter of timing when it comes to accounting. The money was received as a revenue from the New Bern Preservation Foundation during the fiscal year 15 and was accounted for during that time as a revenue, and then the actual expenditure occurred in the fiscal year that we're currently in right now. So that's the reason why the accounting is a little bit different there.
Does the board have questions? Yes, sir.
Mr. Sabatelli or Mr. Stevens, if you could qualify or clarify for the public, we've got 52% fund balance at the end of June, and you said we were going to pay off this high interest loans, and our fund balance will be 39. Can you kind of give them that middle portion on what else is driving that down? Because obviously the $700,000 in early payoff is not pulling us from 52 to 39.
Sure.
Some other things.
Yes. So as of the end of fiscal year 15, there was $14,753,694. That equated to the 52.05% of our fund balance at the time, and that's based on expenditures as a percentage. That fluctuates from year to year, so obviously that percentage can bounce up and down depending on what your expenditure calculation is when it comes to an accounting methodology. Obviously, there have been 5 projects that the board has approved over that time period. School of Government, DFI, Train Depot combined was one that was done 8/13/2015. October of 2015, the First Street Corridor was approved. That was $211,500 for the resurfacing of the boat launch areas, also right in front of where the F-11 jet is, and also some of the improvements to the entrance, which is currently under design at this time. So those will be coming down the line here very shortly, and the additional services for the audit that we had, because we had a single audit at that point that was required by the state of North Carolina. The third one was a debt payoff refi for new debt service. That was $483,375 on January the 5th. January the 26th was the new Recreation Administration building purchase. That was $195,000. That was offset. The total amount was $300,000. $300,000 that we purchased that for. $105,000 of that came through grant monies that we received, and then the $195,000 was the remaining portion. Obviously, the board has expressed interest to possibly selling the property that's over on Oaks Road. That's obviously something that may be coming before you in the future, and the board's wishes may be part of that evaluation that we have with the little ad hoc group that we have coming up here shortly. And then finally, February the 9th, 2016, 3rd Avenue Extension and South Front Street improvements. That was the project as the entryway into Stanley White is the 3rd Avenue Extension portion that creates a cul-de-sac area down at Stanley White Recreation Center. The other portion is the Tryon Palace Loop area, the improvements to reduce the lane widths and actually create some green space there. So those are basically the 5 big capital projects I guess the board has allocated money for in this current fiscal year. Addition to that, we had, that took us down, that was approximately $1.3 million. That took us down to $13.44 million if you base it on June 15's numbers. Then you had the Kell Road, whenever we actually changed that to where it actually is now an asset of the utilities. So that paid off the USDA loan for that. And then finally, the last part, let's see, when you calculate all that stuff down, it comes out to be where if we weren't to spend any of that money, we would have about 41.95% is where we would be right now with all of those expenditures that we've had in this current fiscal year. So this additional $710,000 would take us down to that 39.09%. A lot of numbers, a lot of percentages, but it's...
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify because it sounded like we were going from 52 to 39 because we were paying off one loan of 7.
No, there's been lots of things, projects that the board has appropriated from fund balance, which is, you know, obviously a positive thing whenever you have a fund balance to be able to do those kind of projects.
Thank you.
Okay. And what is the pleasure of the board on this item number 14?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt an ordinance to amend the FY 2015-2016 general fund budget.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Odom, seconded by Alderman Blackiston. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call starting with Alderman Blackiston.
Alderman Blackiston,
Yes.
Alderman Taylor,
Yes.
Alderman Schauble,
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw,
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Alderman White,
Yes.
Alderman Odom.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 15, consider adopting a resolution of preliminary findings for projects to be financed with revenue bonds. Mr. Stevens.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. If you will recall, at our January 12, 2016 board meeting, funding in the amount of $5.6 million was approved for the final phase of the AMI demand-side management system. The financing of this phase of the project will involve revenue bonds, which requires approval from the Local Government Commission. The Finance Department has initiated the proposal request, and BB&T submitted the proposal with the lowest overall cost and a fixed interest rate of 1.97% for that $5.6 million. The term of the bond will be for 10 years with a repayment penalty of 1% of par. The first payment will be $310,241.93, and that will be due December of 2016. There's information in your packet. Upon approval of this, Local Government Commission will have to approve the finance. Is that correct, JR?
Yes, sir.
So that we will be submitting this to Local Government Commission for their approval, and upon approval, we'll be bringing that to you to finalize.
Okay.
Mr. Stevens, when do we expect to have that project completed?
I'll have to ask John or Jordan to come up and speak to that.
At this point, we're expecting to have the electric and water meters deployed within the next 2 years. We currently have over 7,000 of the electric meters on the system already, and we're approaching, I believe, about 3,000 of the water meters. So that's about 1/3 of the electric system so far, and about 1/5 of the water system. We've also put out about 1,600 of the load management switches. That was starting from basically just before the first of the year. So within the next 2 years, we should be hitting the point where we have all the electric meters in place and all the water meters in place, and a very good portion of the load management switches. So it's moving along actually faster than we had anticipated. The meter reading crews have put in a tremendous amount of electric meters and finished up entire routes in the past few months. So they're moving along at a very rapid pace with the deployment.
And obviously, with the asset sale closure completed, the benefits that we have going from a 19 point whatever percent to 12.5%, the benefits as far as our peak shaving when it comes to the load management switches is very, very important at this point.
Yes, it's worth 50% more actually, improving that system.
Great, thanks.
And what's the pleasure of the board on this item?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion, we adopt a resolution of, I'm sorry. Resolution preliminary findings, project to be financed with revenue bonds and approving the bank proposal and commencing procedures for the issuance of the combined enterprise system revenue bond series 2016.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Shallow, seconded by Alderman Blackston. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call starting with Alderman Odom.
Alderman Odom.
Yes.
Alderman White.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey. Mayor Outlaw.
Yes.
Alderman Schauble.
Yes.
Alderman Taylor.
Yes.
Alderman Blackiston.
Yes.
Motion carries. Okay, we'll start with appointments. Let's start with Alderman Odom.
None tonight, sir.
Alderman White.
No.
Alderman Shallow.
No, sir.
Alderman Taylor.
No, sir.
And Alderman Blackston.
No, sir.
I have an appointment I would appreciate the board approving. That would be for Mark Stevens, the city manager, to sit effectively July 1st of this year on the Tourism Development Authority Board, the TDA board.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Alderman Odom, seconded by Alderman Taylor for approval of my appointment. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same. Okay, no further appointments at this time. Okay, we go to the attorney's report.
Nothing to report tonight, Mayor.
City manager's report.
One thing, there is a item that you have a hard copy in front of you all. We mentioned this at the retreat. That's Town Hall Day that's coming up. That's an opportunity where our local board members are able to go up and meet with our representatives at the state level. Those who wish to attend, if you would let Brenda and myself know. I think several of you had indicated, I can't remember which ones, Alderman Blackston, I think maybe Mr. Kinsey was one, maybe the mayor, but any of you have the opportunity to go. Obviously, I have provided for you a little bit of information here. There is some small charges for certain things that possibly attend. So if you wish to attend those, we'll need to know if we all want to go up in 2 cars or something. That's something else we'll need to coordinate if a bunch of people go. I feel that I will be there. I probably will ask Chrissy to come with me, given her contacts up in Raleigh. Maybe we can utilize those initially. And so if you will, just let us know so that we can do that. Would like to know by the end of the week, or if possible, by Friday for those who wish to attend, and we'll get that coordinated for you.
Anything else, sir?
No, sir.
Okay, go to new business, starting with Alderman Blackston.
Nothing at this time.
Alderman Taylor.
Yes, there are 2 small items. I like for us to consider when we do our ad hoc committees, and there's an issue in a certain ward that we take in consideration and for the alderman that represent that ward to be on the ad hoc committee, allow he or she to either accept or decline, because when there's an issue in a community that an alderman represent and that alderman has no say-so to that community, it doesn't look too well for that alderman to not have a say-so for the people that he or she represent. So that's something that I like for us to take in consideration, that we look into that before we make an ad hoc committee that does not directly affect certain wards. The other item is, I'll disregard that. That's it.
Okay,
Thank
Alderman
you.
Sharp.
No, sir.
Alderman McKenzie, we're doing new business.
No,
You have
sir.
any? Alderman White.
I have a person complaining about, she says she called downtown, it's about an abandoned house, and she said it's bats in the house, and it's bat odor. I gave her a number to call. She said she had talked to those people, and she didn't, somebody said there wasn't nothing they could do. I told her she needed to get back with them again, and we need to talk, because if it's a house that's abandoned, it's on Eubank Street. And she said it's bats, she complained about the bats in the house, and then, Mark, you and I, we talked a while back about the streetlights. I don't know, I said a while back, but I know it's been a while back. Streetlights are still not there, area's still dark. Plus, in the community I live in, we had a couple of problems. And out of those couple of problems, I'm not gonna say the lights would have made that much difference, but the lighting is better.
Okay. I would, if you don't mind, I'll get with you and we'll talk about, obviously, I would like to get the address of the Eubanks and the contact information for the lady. We'll follow up with that. And specifically, if I need to meet with you, we'll go around and look at the streetlights if we need to, so I can identify and get the addresses so that I can let John and his staff know
No problem at all.
where those are.
No,
Alderman Odom.
I have several items. I'll promise to be brief. Few issues, city-owned streets or streets that we may not have taken over yet with the speed limits being enforced. I think there may be some questions on some of those, maybe an update might need to be done for some of the newer streets. Had a lot of issues with that recently. Parking on Trent Road, now that we have the bicycle lanes installed, had a couple complaints about that. That may be another issue there that we would have to address. And then I want to thank Jordan for taking care of the stop signs at the post office on Glen Burnie. Thank Matt. I think he probably got tired of seeing emails from me for the past couple of weeks, but we had a lot of stormwater issues and he took care of those for me. I appreciate that. Craven Works, attended that today. I'll go ahead and consider that a success. I think there was 107 people at the door waiting whenever they opened it up. And the last number I heard was over 500 attendees, so that was...
It was 1,000, actually, whenever I left at about 6:15, and there was 1,000 people had been there.
All right, so huge success there. That's one of the signs that you can see from the C1A and the new Craven 100 Alliance that's been put together. And then the last comment I'll have is just gauge interest on the board. We had talked about a bond at one point in time prior to us receiving some very positive news on a healthy fund balance, and one of the big projects we had talked about was some repaving. Didn't know what the board thought about having staff maybe present us at a later date a supplemental paving project that we could do, pay cash as you go, as Mr. Sabatelli is so fond of. I would personally like to see that. I think we're at a point where we made a lot of tough decisions over the last couple of years, and we've got that fund balance there that could help us try to get caught back up on some of those street-related issues.
Anything else?
That's all.
Alderman White, do you have anything else? I kind of ran kind of fast down there. I want to make sure, do you have
No,
anything
most
else?
of certain issues that I have, I'll talk to Mark about.
Okay.
You know,
Good.
a
Alderman
couple
Kinsey.
things, and we try to iron them out.
Okay, thanks, sir.
Yes, on the new business, I'd like to know, when are we gonna start to, having our work sessions in our wards? When are we gonna come together and start that? I'd like to be the first one to start that, so what month would that be?
I think historically, I think we did one at HJ, we did one at Stanley White, we did one at West Newbern Rec. We've done some of those.
Water plant.
Sir?
Water plant.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so is that in the form of a motion?
Yes, it is, that, next meeting we can have an
Workshop?
Workshop at HJ. Madam Clerk, what date would that be, ma'am?
I will tell you that our next work sessions are actually our budget work sessions. So the question will be is, do you want those to be
No, sir.
live, or do you want it to be the work session following our budget work sessions?
Let's do it follow.
Okay. So that will probably, let's see, we have 2 in May. We do not have one in June, so it'll be the work session in July, I think, would be the one that you're speaking of.
Okay.
Okay, can you keep me abreast, please?
Is that work?
We'll look that up and get with you, and then we'll send out an email to the board. Obviously, the board will need to make a decision. We'll bring that to you. You'll need to make a decision and approve that through a motion and a second to have it at a specific location.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Alderman Taylor, do you have something else?
Yes, real quick. Matt, can you come up real quick? I've got approached several times in reference to the cleanup in the community, you know, every 3 months. When is that starting and where are we with that?
I'd have to go back and look at the schedule, but the staff is continuously doing different zones each month. You're talking about the stormwater crews.
Yeah.
Each month they're in a different zone. What month they're in this, that, I'd have to go look at the schedule.
Okay, because I'd like to know because some of my areas has not seen city vehicles and they say over a year, but I still like to know where they are, where we are and when the last time we've been.
I'll certainly get you that schedule and let you know where they're at.
All right, thank you, Bill.
Anything else?
That's it. Thank
Okay.
you.
A couple of things on our new business. I'm gonna let the city manager kind of update the public on a meeting that the two of us went to in Raleigh, particularly green bond financing and things like that. So go ahead and update us on what we found.
Sure. So last week, Thursday it was, Mayor and I drove up to Raleigh. We attended it was the North Carolina State Treasurer, Janet Cowell, had a sustainability and innovation conference regarding financing and projects that involve financing across North Carolina. There were representative projects well attended by many municipalities, many different organizations about opportunities for municipalities to use particular bond financing. There was individuals from Bank of America, there was somebody from Moody's there to kind of discuss some of that. One of the issues they talked about with green bond financing was an opportunity for us to look, it really is more of a label, I think, as far as the green label that you get, but what it does is many of the large investor companies will look as a part of their model for their portfolio to look at projects that are green related. That's a way that we can do bond financing and potentially help drive down of some of the interest cost. Obviously, as you see with our revenue bond, came in at really good at 1.97%. But anytime you have more competition in the bond market, people bidding on it, it drives the interest rate down. So that's a good thing. So we also looked, and there were some great ideas regarding various topics, solid waste to gosh, forgive me, Mayor, I would have brought my notes up here if I'd have known you were going to make specific comments, but I know the green projects was one. We had various panel discussions that had a lot of interesting things to discuss. Water was one as far as water loss, so I think Mr. Kavanaugh was in there doing his presentation with Kavanaugh Associates, and then there was some other individuals with waste and a lot of good discussions. So
yeah. So anyway, it's a very good discussion. I wanted to update you, the public, on a couple of things. I was going to welcome the leadership of Craven. I think there was some folks in here and they've left. I want to thank the staff on the trash cans and the recycling bins that you've been putting out. I think that's really going to help out. The main thing is to make sure, I noticed a couple of them are already full. I don't know, I think they're daily checking those. The big thing was to make the public aware that, and I don't know if this is big enough, I wasn't going to try to get it on the thing, but North Carolina Department of Transportation, April 16th through the 30th, volunteer locally for, it's a litter campaign, Adopt the Highway, and any information needed, there's some 800 number down here. Just call City Hall. I'm sure one of our staff people can help if you want to adopt a highway, if you have any ideas on how to correct the litter problem we have in New Bern and in James City and other areas of Craven County. One thing very interesting, if we do anything else on the Beltline, we passed a truck that's doing the right thing with the tarps, and Mark and I got on the phone and emailed a picture of it to Steve Tyson, the county commissioner, because that tarp program that they have on that truck, I don't think you'll have any trash flying out the windows. Out with the tarp.
strapped down real well.
It really did. So again, that's all we have. Was anything else come before the New Bern Board of Aldermen at this time? Do we need a closed session tonight, sir?
We do, Mayor. I need to give the board a brief update on City of New Bern versus Capri Hospitality as pursuant to 143, 1311, A3.
So moved.
Motion by Alderman Odom, seconded by Alderman Kinsey for approval. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed, the same. The motion carries.